Hello, we're going to look at integrated care, what it is, why it's important, and how we could deliver it in the Isle of Man. Conventional wisdom has it that if you're going to redesign a health and social care system, you start by stepping back from the individual, looking at the big picture and looking at costs and outcomes for large patient populations. Those of us that work in primary care, however, often feel that doing the opposite is a good way of approaching a problem, looking intensely at the healthcare of an individual and using that as a lens through which to view the entire system. So, this is Jean and Andy. Oh, and the little dog Isla. Jean is a proud Scot and a retired nurse who helps keep an eye on Andy because Andy has COPD, diabetes and has had knee and hip replacements and is very deaf as a result of driving his tank over a landmine at El Alamein. Jean looked after Andy and they lived without support and indeed were very active in the local community, supporting others. Then Jean died and Andy understandably became a bit down and at times a little confused. He'd go along to his GP but found that he could never quite cover all his problems and concerns in the 10 minutes allotted to him. And when there was a crisis, he'd end up in A&E, waiting forever. And when he was seen, he'd end up telling the story from the beginning each time to 3 or 4 different people who didn't seem to know anything about him at all, or what each other was doing. But what was certain was that they would all want a social services assessment to be sure he was safe to go home again. And that always seemed to take a day or 2 to organise. So he ended up in a hospital bed, picking up nasty bugs and worrying about the little dog at home. And when he did get home, although he could talk to his doctor and his social care workers, they didn't seem to talk to each other or the hospital, and nobody really knew what was going on. And as a result, they didn't give him the support he needed. The result of this, he knew all too clearly, was that he was likely to end up in a care home. And he didn't like that one bit. Apart from anything else, he'd lose his little dog. So Andy got to thinking about what things were like before 50 years of progress in the NHS. When Dr. Findlay and Dr. Cameron not only knew all about you, but knew all there was to know about medicine, and could sort any problem, from a major operation to somebody popping in to collect your shopping, all with a single simple telephone call. Wouldn't it be nice, he thought, if there was a single person, let's call her Leslie, who coordinated all the others and knew exactly what was going on. And they then could all have a single care plan that covered absolutely everything about him. And they could share it and update it electronically, so it was always up to date. And that meant that he and his little dog could stay at home and Leslie would make sure they were all well. And when there was a problem, he didn't have to ring for an ambulance. He'd ring Leslie for advice. And even when he did end up in hospital, it's just a matter of reviewing and updating his care plan so he could go home a lot more quickly. If he needed a seat in the shower, or home oxygen, or even an electronic tablet dispenser that bleeped to remind him when to take the tablets, Leslie could just arrange it with a single telephone call. So Andy and Isla could stay at home with their dreams and memories. And the hospital had room for people that really needed to be there and wasn't full of people that really needed to be somewhere totally different.